Hello, my name is Melissa Rickey. I'm the graduate admission counselor at Ursuline College, and I have with me today Hannah Hottinger. She is a current counseling and art therapy student, and she started our counseling and art therapy program just recently this spring. So for those of you who are watching the video, Hannah joined our Ursuline Counseling and Art Therapy Master's Program as an undergrad art therapy bridge student. We also at Ursuline College offer the undergrad art therapy program as a way for students to be able to take coursework in undergrad art therapy and then transition into their junior year by taking both master's and finishing up their bachelor's level coursework. The benefits to this is that students earn both a bachelor's and master's degree in a shorter amount of time than they would doing these programs separately. And this also saves the students money and gets them into the job market a little bit faster too, which is always a wonderful thing for students to have that marketing edge and be able to get out and get employed a little faster as well. So Hannah, if you don't mind, please share with us how your undergrad art therapy program has helped to prepare you for the Master's in Counseling and Art Therapy program.
Yeah, the undergrad program, in like the short amount of classes that I've been able to take with the bridge so far, has really helped me to prepare for, like, I think first off, the amount of like workload that I have, the amount of like art that we had to do in art classes, and on top of like doing the papers and like working on all the counseling side of things as well. It was a very good like introduction to having to time manage between the different sides of art therapy. It was an awesome opportunity to get to know art therapists and what you're actually going to be doing in the field. And then also the field placement course that we get to do for like the capstone art therapy undergrad class was super helpful in like going out into the field and like getting a taste of like how this is gonna work and how like even like graduate placement hours are gonna be as well for internships and whatnot. So sorry, I'm outside.
That's all right. So Hannah, can you talk a little bit more about maybe some of the art projects or the writing assignments that you did at the undergrad art therapy level that you specifically feel were very interesting or challenged you more to think maybe more critically as you're preparing for your master's program, anything like that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of like the papers and research side of things that we got to do was on, I remember my favorite one was on like past art therapy pioneers. So we got to do like hear about a lot of different pioneers, and we got to like really research how art therapy came to be. A lot of our writing assignments also were like reflections off of art things that we have done. So a lot of the art that we would do in the art therapy classes wasn't just art to do art, it was that art to get something out of it, to reflect and to figure out things about yourself before you go into, let's say, full-on master's program. And so it was a good way to like get through some of the hard parts of going into like a counseling field. But a lot of the papers and research that we did had to do with that art that we had done. And we got to do a lot of research on what types of populations we were interested in working in. We got to hear a lot about that. It was very cool to be able to get a very like rounded out approach of what I wanted to be doing in the future.
And that's good to hear. And I'm glad that you mentioned that the projects that you worked on helped you to self-explore. You do a lot of that both kind of foundationally at the undergrad art therapy level, but more especially, at least from my perspective, I see this a lot with our master's program.
Mm-hmm.
Our students are really focusing on self-reflection, self-discovery of who they are as individuals, and then as potential clinicians. So this gives you a sense to be able to get to know yourself better so that you can work with people in the mental health and as an art therapist better too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's great to hear. So what specific bridge courses, Hannah, did you find most helpful to transition from a bachelor's level to a master's level student? You did mention some of the projects and things that you've worked on, but any specific courses that you think was helpful for that bridge transition?
Yeah, the class that I was dreading at first, but it ended up being a great class for transitioning was the Intro to Research and Writing. It was very intimidating because I thought I was going to be so like unprepared, not finishing like undergrad yet, like I haven't done all the big papers, but actually going into it, a lot of the techniques that we are taught in even in the art therapy classes for undergrad really like translated, and that was a great like transition. I think that class, it was very labor intensive, very hard, a lot of reading, a lot of researching, but also it was like your foot's in the door. Like you can research whatever you want, you can start looking at something that you're super into, something you learned about before that you want to look further into, things that you want to do for maybe your thesis down the road. So it was a really great way, at least for me, to kind of bridge through, because I got to see what I had learned and what I'm going to learn. So it's really cool.
That's great, Hannah. And then what topic do you mind me asking? What was the topic that you chose to write about?
Yeah, so I kind of took a different approach than I was originally thinking. I'm very into my faith, and so I wanted to see what the implications of possibly Christian counseling and art therapy and how those could combine. And so I was going to research how they've been combined in the past. And I kind of found that there wasn't very much research on it at all. I found not one article that specifically mentioned these two counseling practices coming together. And so I got to do a lot of research on both art therapy and Christian counseling, and I got to kind of integrate those and find the similarities and differences between the two. So it was it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but it was really informational, and it kind of like stirred me up, and I really am excited to like look more into that topic in the future too.
Absolutely. And that's surprising that there isn't a whole lot of research out there, being that there are Christian counseling centers.
Exactly.
So that's surprising for sure. But, you know, as you mentioned earlier when we talked about this, this research paper definitely has prepared you somewhat to think about maybe the area that you want to work in, you mentioned, or even if you want to consider researching this area of counseling a little bit further, as you will be doing a capstone project in the conclusion of your master's program.
Yeah.
So that's good that you mentioned that this class in particular, being a lot of research-based material, helps to prepare you for the master's program.
Yes.
And what is one thing that you would tell a prospective student to help prepare him or her who is looking at the counseling and art therapy bridge option?
I think my advice would be to like embrace it, because you can go through at your own pace, or you can like dive in and just give it your all. And I got so much more out of these classes when I put everything into it and just kind of let my course schedule like line up so that I could get through everything almost like the fastest I could, because all of that information kind of just like comes together so nicely. I feel like if I would have spread it out anymore, I wouldn't have seen the connections and like had this like excitement that I do right now for what I'm doing. So I think just like not being afraid to dive into the bridge program. Grad school is not as scary to jump into as it may seem. I definitely thought it was scary at first, but yeah, just like trust your professors. They're all awesome. They're all gunning for your success too. So yeah, just like jump right in, go for it.
Absolutely. And great advice too, because I know a lot of students, especially our younger students that are transitioning into a master's program or even just looking at a master's program in general. It just seems extremely intimidating with the amount of coursework that's expected and time management as well. I know you're a student athlete as well, so I'm sure time management played a key role in most of the work that you were doing, especially combining those bachelor's and master's courses. Do you mind sharing a little bit about how you were able to time manage during your athletic season?
Yeah. So I play volleyball at Ursuline. It's my last year this year, which is crazy. But I think what I've really learned is like communication is the best thing for time management. All the professors at Ursuline, both undergrad and graduate, have really helped me in making sure that I'm set up for success. So if my field placement class, I had to start late because I was in a school system. And so my teachers allowed me to like slowly work my way into it. And they were with me like step by step. And it's because I was communicating with them the whole time. And during season, if I have an art class that's supposed to run into practice time, it's communication between me and my coach and me and my teacher. And like talking to other people as well. So even just like asking for help every once in a while. Like if you're behind in a class, like finding a friend who you trust who can help you get back on track. Just not being afraid to communicate with people at where you're standing right now. And that's really helped me with time management a lot. I'm also a very big scheduler, so I have everything planned out to a T. So when something's off track, that's when I know I need to start communicating with people. But that's what I've been going through to work on time management.
Thank you. I think that's all great advice for students that are looking at a master's program or a bridge program, or even thinking about, can I still continue my athletic career while doing a bridge program or a master's program? So very good advice on a lot of those key points. So I know we talked about this a little bit. You had mentioned that you're interested in possibly doing Christian counseling. As you're working through the bridge program, completing that process, or I'm wondering if you've thought about any other populations, or if you know for sure this is the area that you want to work in once you finish the program, and maybe even to share a little bit more about your field placement. You mentioned working in a school, if that was able to help you kind of look at a population or an agency or a type of environment that you might want to work in once you finish the master's program.
Yeah, my go-to has always been to work with children. I love kids and love being around them, their energy and everything. So when I was looking for my field placement for a site, I knew I wanted to be somewhere with children. And so this year was the first year that we were at the site for field placement, and it was called Rising Star Academy, and it was a school for severely motor challenged children. And there actually wasn't an art therapist at the school. There was someone who was a former artist.
Okay.
So it was, again, with the communication, it was a lot of me talking to my professors and kind of learning through them, because I couldn't see an art therapist in action at the site, but also influencing like the teachers that were there, showing even them that art has a special place for these kids and they get super excited about it. So I always definitely can see myself working with kids in any capacity. I'm not sure in what capacity yet, but the Christian counseling side of things is something I kind of discovered recently. I actually got to do an independent study through Ursuline, kind of doing more research on it as well. And because it's such a new topic, if I could go into that, that would be super exciting. But after grad school and after I'm out of the master's program, I think my first heart's desire is to find some kids to work with. And I really loved working with the kids that were at the school. It was awesome to see like their love for art and their like enjoyment in that. So that was really cool too.
Very good. Well, Hannah, I wish you the best of luck with wherever this wonderful journey takes you. And hopefully we can stay in touch and see how you're doing down the road as you're finishing up the master's program and successfully made it through the bridge program. I know there's more wonderful things to come, and thank you for taking the time as well to share your experience with prospective students that may be looking at our bridge program.
Of course.